Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to the School of Personal Finance. In today's video, I'm going to share with you my top 5 core stock funds that I use when building out client portfolios. All right, let's get to it. So just my disclosure real quick before we get started. This is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Do not act on any of the things that I'm talking about in this video without consulting your own financial advisor. If you would like to hire me to be your financial advisor, go over to schoolofpersonalfinance.com. Look at the different ways you could work with me. You could schedule an appointment right on my calendar, right through the website. All right, so now you may already know that I'm a big fan of passive low-cost index funds, and that's what I use when I put together client portfolios. So now what I'm going to focus on today are the top 5 stock funds that I use. So these are not inclusive of bond funds. So this is just the equity piece of your portfolio. So the amount of each of these funds that I use in the client account depends on their risk tolerance. For example, if it is a 30-year-old in the retirement account and they are very aggressive and want 100% in stock, then these core funds, it's going to make up a large portion of that portfolio. If it's somebody who is retired and maybe they only have 50% of their money in stock funds, then these 5 funds are going to be a much lesser portion of the overall portfolio, because then I'm going to have bond funds in there as well to make up the entire portfolio. All right, so coming in at number 1 is the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund. And there are 2 versions to it. There's the ETF version, which the ticker symbol is VTI, or there is the mutual fund version where the ticker symbol is VTSAX. Now, this covers, it's a broad, low-cost index fund. It covers the entire US stock market. Many people use this as their only equity position in their entire portfolio. So as of the end of 2020, it had a little bit over 3,600 positions inside of the fund. So this gives you a breakdown of what type of stocks they are as far as growth, value, large cap, mid cap, small cap. So the bulk of this is going to be in your large cap blend type companies. And if we scroll down, we could see what the biggest holdings are in here. And I'm sure that you would have a good guess of what the biggest holdings are in a total stock market index fund. So yeah, at the end of the year, there's 3,618 holdings. And the biggest one at 5.32% of the overall portfolio is Apple. So the top 10 are 22% of the entire fund. So Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Tesla, Google, Johnson & Johnson, Berkshire Hathaway, and JP Morgan Chase. But now this fund, it's going to track the overall performance of the stock market. So there's no surprises. You're not going to turn the TV on and have the market be up 2% and this fund is going to be down. This is going to track the market. So if the markets are doing well, this fund is doing well. If the markets are not doing well, then this fund is not going to be doing well. It's going to track the overall market. That's why we call it an index fund. It follows an index of the overall US stock market. And then coming in at number 2 is the Invesco QQQ. Now this is an index fund that follows the top 100 NASDAQ stocks that are not financial. So by investing in this fund, you're just getting additional exposure to technology. So the 10 largest holdings in here are Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Facebook, Google, Nvidia, PayPal, and Netflix. And those make up 52% of the overall portfolio. So it is heavily weighted in large cap technology. Now with this fund, I use it as a much smaller percentage of an overall portfolio. So maybe where the Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund I use for half of the equity portfolio, for this, I'm only going to use it for maybe 10% of the overall equity allocation. So a much smaller percentage of the overall portfolio. It just gives you a little bit extra exposure to the technology names. And if we just look real quick, you might already be very well aware of this, but technology has been on fire. So last year, it was up 48% in 2020, which is just crazy, right? We can't expect to have continuous years of that. But really, over the last decade, it has performed great. Now, obviously, that does not mean that that is going to continue in the future. We might have a complete rotation into, where international stocks outperform everything over the next decade. We just don't know. But technology has been great, and there's so much new technology coming out right now that it's exciting, and hopefully this stuff is going to continue. All right, so those first 2 are definitely weighted towards larger companies and technology companies. So coming in at number 3 is the Vanguard Small Cap ETF. The ticker symbol is VB. So this is an index fund that tracks the US small cap market, which are smaller companies. Now, this is a 5-star silver rated fund through Morningstar. If we look at the expense ratio, It is 0.05, so that means 5 basis points. So it is very low cost. And then we can scroll down and look at the performance. Like in 2020, it was up a little over 19%. Year to date, it's up a little bit over 6%. So small cap companies, they really came on late in 2020. So this is just another piece of the pie to make sure that you have your hands in everything, because we just don't know from one year to the next what is going to outperform what. And this is a great way to get access to all these small cap companies, growth companies, value companies, and make sure that if they really take off and if they lead this economy forward, that you have a piece of this. And now with small cap companies, there's an additional level of risk and volatility to these types of funds because they're smaller companies. So if we look at the largest holdings in this portfolio, they're names that you might not have ever heard of before. So like the first one, Enphase Energy, I mean, that's one that's been doing great as of recently with this solar energy boom that is going on right now. But total, there's 1,425 stocks in this portfolio. And the percent of assets in the top 10 holdings is only 3%. So that is very different than like the QQQ, where half of the portfolio is in those big top 10 tech companies. All right, and then coming in at number 4, we add some mid-sized companies. So for that, we're going to use the Vanguard S&P 400 Mid-Cap ETF, ticker symbol IVOO. Now, this is another gold medal fund rated by Morningstar. If we look here, the expense ratio, so 10 basis points on this. And then if we just glance at the performance real quick here, I mean, these charts all kind of look the same over the last couple of years. But 2020, it was up a little over 13.5%. So year to date, the small and the mid-cap companies have been performing well. I mean, we're only, basically 3 weeks in to 2021. So who knows what's going to happen the rest of the year. But last year, it was really all about the big cap tech companies. And, maybe it'll be different this year. So now just to hit this point home, these are core positions to make up a portfolio. They're not the only positions. So I also use what I call satellite positions that I'll add in depending on the environment. And I'm going to do a video talking about my favorite top 5 satellite positions that I'm using right now in client portfolios. But then there's also the bond piece. So I'll do a video about the bond piece as well, talk about the bond positions that I use, the bond funds that I use inside of client portfolios. All right, so we've hit on large cap, we've hit on mid cap, we added some small cap, we have growth, we have value, we have a little emphasis on technology. The one thing that's missing from this core holding in the portfolio is international exposure. So to add some international exposure, I use the Vanguard Total International Stock Market Index. Ticker symbol on that is VTIAX. Now again, I'm only using this for a small portion of the stock allocation in the portfolio, maybe 10% of the overall stock allocation. Now international stocks, they have underperformed the United States big time over the last decade. Now that could definitely change. People are saying that they're projecting that that is going to change over the next decade. But again, there's just no way to go. But we're in the globalized world. So even the largest US companies, you could argue that they are international companies as well, because they are reaching, across the globe right now. Now this fund is what's classified as a foreign large cap blend fund. So it's going to be larger international companies with a blend of value and growth. As we can see here, non-US equities, so international companies, 99% of the portfolio. And now we could break it down to see how much exposure they have to different regions. So for example, the largest region is developed Europe nations. And then below that, we have Japan, which is a little over 16%. Asia, emerging markets, 16%. So you get exposure to really the whole world outside of the US through this fund. And then if we look real quick at what the Morningstar analyst says here in one sentence, it really sums it up. Outstanding diversification and an ultra low fee. So this is the fund that I use to get some international exposure and round out my 5 core positions for portfolios. All right, everyone, I hope that you found it helpful going through these 5 funds that I use as the core to building out client portfolios. Please do not take this as specific advice. Consult with your own financial advisor before pulling the trigger on any investments. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, and I will see you again in the next video. Thanks.